Welcome to Life's Rich Tapestry, a podcast exploring the narrative of people's layered lives. Listen in on courageous conversations spoken from the heart. Gain insight into another's life as we tackle compelling topics which will expand your mind, help you gain perspective, and might even inspire you to do things differently. My name is Evelyn, and I look forward to your company. The largest trail run in the Southern Hemisphere, Ultra Trail Australia, is a race event set in the heart of the Blue Mountains, Australia, a listed World Heritage with the most unique and diverse landscape. The race is designed to accommodate different distances starting from 11 kilometers, 22 kilometers, 50 kilometers, up to the ultimate 100 kilometers. My next guest, Shruthi Rao, ran her very first 100-kilometer race last year, and I'm very excited to have her here with me. So welcome to the show, Shruthi.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. Now, all stories start at the beginning, so just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from India and I moved to Australia around 8 years ago to pursue my MBA and also explored the startup space. And I loved Australia for the landscape and wilderness that it had.
Yeah, fantastic. So, but what made you join the running group?
2.5 years ago, my husband and I, we randomly fell in love with a house in the mountains and we moved straight up here without giving it much of a thought. It was during COVID. Things were all locked down and running and hiking became our only outlet. And for me, I really wanted to do running because I was into sports like boxing and Muay Thai before, and there were no facilities around. So I just took to running.
So you joined then a running group, is that right? So was there, or did you just run on your own at first?
It started with just me running on my own at first. I was just looking at trails and I was just mildly running, competing with my own score, and I wanted to run fast. I happened to meet a few people just by chance. One of my colleagues lives here as well. He said, "My wife's a runner. You should go meet her." And I was like, "This is great. Can you introduce me to her?" She happened to be a trail runner and an ultra marathoner herself. And she suggested a few other local running groups. And she also suggested, that she went to a coach, and one thing led to another. And that's how I fumbled into this amazing local running group.
What is the difference between road running and trail running?
For starters, I didn't even know, there weren't any differences running. I just wanted to run, get my energy out. Trail running simply means going for a run in the heart of nature. It's an extremely all-rounded sport that works the legs. It also works out the upper body. It requires a lot of concentration and tension. It's sort of, I've described it in detail in my blog. In a way, if you have to draw parallels to what road running is, road running, by definition, you take a road and you run on it. Mm-hmm. It's quite impactful as well. But if you have to sort of draw parallels, then it just means like it's a lot more complicated than it. Why? Because, it's in the mountains and it's in the trails, which means you have steep descents. You have some rough, uncut terrain. So you need some technique to navigating all of that. You need high mobility. You need stable ankles. And you really need to get used to a lot of climbing. When I first started, even just hiking, I would climb 10 stairs and I would just get out of breath and my heart rate would go so up.
Yeah.
Big transformation. You just keep doing that and you'll be fascinated that you will get so much more familiarized with the stairs. How some of the Blue Mountain stairs are. Yeah. So trail running involves all of that. It's quite dramatic based on the landscape that you have. But it just also means that you need different body parts to be a lot more stronger and a mad attention to detail.
Wow. It sounds like you need to be really athletic then. So are you athletic or Yeah.
Well, I would say, am I athletic now? Well, for someone that hasn't done running before, they would see me as saying, yes, I'm athletic because I've done 100 kilometer. But honestly, if I have to compare myself to some of the running groups, I would say not, because I run with these legendary ultra runners. But have I always been athletic? The answer is no. I grew up in India and I didn't have a lot of access to sports. I mean, a little bit, but nothing compared to, how sporty Aussie schools are. And this was also, in a way, one of the main reasons I moved, because I subconsciously loved all of this. When I came here, I feel like I doubled down on all the sports I missed in my childhood. And it was also such a good source of, getting your energy out. So I wasn't athletic at all. And in fact, even when I started running, I transitioned from, doing mixed martial arts. I used to do Muay Thai, boxing. I transitioned and I thought, oh, I can do that. And I need to go to running. I couldn't run 100 meters without getting breathless. The first time I ran long distance, I felt nauseated. It wasn't that I was always athletic, but somehow I am an accidental ultra trail runner.
So how long were you running as part of this trail group before you actually did the 100?
It's almost been, 3 years that I moved to the mountains, and I started running as a COVID hobby. So it's almost been approximately, 3 years. 2.5 years ago, after I met the running group, and they introduced me to some of the local coaches, and I started going regularly. I started taking running a lot more seriously because I thought, oh, if I can walk and hike, I can run. But what I realized, running was so subtle, but also involved a lot of technique. So I had to, relearn the way I ran. I did some gait analysis. They told me how to pace. They had told me how to position myself and my posture. So there was a lot of learning. And I kept going regularly to those coaching sessions. It would be at 6 a.m. in the morning and it would be gone. And there would also be these group runnings that I would do. So with regular practice, I would say it was almost 2 years before I even embarked on the 100K journey. However, there is a story. It was not my plan to do the 100K at all. Do you want to know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm so interested because I just find this fascinating that someone who just picked up running, who really wasn't into it, and all of a sudden their first go is the 100. So yeah, let us know. So you didn't sign up for a 100. What did you sign up for?
First of all, after I started running, I was starting to get comfortable with 10 kilometers because I started with just like wanting to do 5 kilometers. And then I slowly kept practicing and I got comfortable with 10 kilometers. And someone said, why not, participate in the race? And I said, yes, because this is such a local event to Blue Mountains. And I wanted to do something very local because I was now a Blue Mountain local person. I was like, why not? I want to participate because I have started running. So I went ahead and purchased a 22-kilometer ticket. That itself was a lot because I'd never done any race in my life. One thing we needed to know is when I took up this first race in 2022, October, there was this La Nina condition going on, which is the climatic condition with continuous rains. In Blue Mountains, we've had a lot of landslides as well. So the race event was pushed a bit further. And therefore, there were a lot of cancellations because of it. The course track kind of changed as well. When I was sitting with my 22 ticket, because it was local, I kept practicing. I felt a bit more confident and comfortable with 30. And I thought, it's never really an ultra if you don't do the ultra distance. By the way, for listeners that are listening, ultra just means that you do longer distance, longer than a marathon, which is more than 42 kilometers. So in my heart, I was like, although the race event is called Ultra and I'm doing 22K, there was something in me wanting to, upgrade to 50 kilometer. So I sort of kept it in the fence and I just asked out in the community, anybody has a 50 kilometer ticket that you would like to exchange for 22? A lot of people love the 22 kilometer ticket because it's high in demand. Because, it's not a difficult distance. It's sort of doable distance. It's a half marathon. Someone out of the blue reached out and said, hey, I have a 100-kilometer ticket. I'll give it for free because I know nobody is going to buy my 100 kilometers, but I really need the 22 ticket. So what that person did was they paid for my 22 ticket and they just gave away their 100-kilometer ticket.
Wow.
Now, I must say that the tickets are quite expensive.
What does the payment involve, and why do you have to give such a payment?
Yeah, so I didn't know, first of all, there was a payment for it either. Like 3 years back, you asked me saying, do you want to do an ultra and pay $500 for a 100-kilometer ticket? I'm like, why will I pay for suffering, But this is fascinating. There are people that travel all around the world for this world-class event, and they pay these fees, and it's explainable. It's a large event. I don't know, maybe the event even have to pay for the council here because you have to maybe create those tracks. And there are these checkpoints where in those checkpoints are like, aid stations and food stations. They supply you with all needed nutrients, You get the electrolytes, you get the food that you need. And there are all the volunteers that come and support you. There are these paramedics that they bring in. We don't know what happens. I mean, it's an event and it's a lot of, undertaking. I wouldn't want to get into the pricing, but it is expensive.
Okay. Well, that's good to know because I didn't know you had to pay, but it makes sense because there are checkpoints involved, volunteers as well. So there's all these things. And of course, probably advertising, and I'm sure they need a budget for that. So that does make sense. When you found out you were doing the 100, how long was it before you had to do the 100? Because obviously you're training, but you're thinking you're doing the 22. So then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm doing the 100. So how long did you have to prepare for the 100?
Look, this is when having access to friends that have run 100 kilometers and other ultra many times helps, So I quickly accessed my local brain trust that I had. I must call them leg trust because
leg trust.
I don't know, maybe I just made up a bad. So I quickly reached out to them and I said, we have like these, our own personal chat and running groups. I said, guys, there's someone wanting to pay a free ticket, and then I'm just thinking I'll buy it because 100-kilometer tickets are expensive, and it's fine even if I drop out. What I want to do is I want to get the feel of what it is to be in 100K. At least when I'm prepared, I know what it takes. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? I might just even hike as much as possible. That's another thing about ultra running. Mm-hmm. You think people always keep running, but there are instances where you're climbing something so steep that you might have to hike it and then do a bit of running. So it's a bit of hiking, shuffling, running. And that was my thought. I just didn't want to give it away because there was an opportunity. One of my friends, she was really kind and she said, hey, Shru, I'll hike with you. Looks like there are a lot of people giving away their 100 ticket because they know they've paid for it. They know no one's going to buy. And it was just like 1 or 2 hours before the exchange for the tickets were almost closing. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were like, instead of wasting it, I might as well give it to someone that just wants to do it. So she said, I'll hike it with you. Mm-hmm. And that's what gave me the confidence. I said, okay, at least I have someone. And the other thing that gave me the confidence was that I knew these tracks really well because after I moved to the Blue Mountains, everything was closed. So the thing we did the most is we hiked. I knew those paths in the back of my mind and I'd done it all. So I thought to myself, I'm so familiar with these tracks. I exactly know where to go. And if something doesn't work out, I might even just go home because home is just like so close by. When I say close by, you're in the valley. It would still take you another 20 minutes to go home. No, 20 kilometers to go home. But overall, the confidence was that I knew the tracks and someone was coming with me. I had access to local knowledge and local people. And I said, why not? And I took a chance.
So you found out you're doing the 100 and what was that period until you did the 100?
It was 3 days before.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay. So 3 days before. So you're thinking initially, I'm doing the 22 and you get the 100.
But look, that's the whole point, right? Yeah. I didn't put the stress on me saying you have to do the 100K.
Yes, you didn't. Yeah.
What I said was, this is a beautiful chance where someone's offering me a free ticket and I'm getting the experience of what it is to be 100K. And I went in with a really open, positive mindset.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that, honestly, I think that was it. Just being confident and going with that positive, open mindset.
Okay. But let's talk about the preparation. You need shoes, you need certain gear, and you've obviously trained for this, you've practiced for it. How about diet, discipline, the sleep, socks? You tell me, how did you prepare for this?
I got into running thinking it would be cheap, but nothing like that. Nothing like it. You know, that's the thing, right? I thought, okay, running, you just need yourself, maybe shoes. I was also thinking about being a barefoot runner in the beach, but no. So there are a few important gears that you need, especially as a trail runner. The first and foremost, the most important thing is the shoes. I went ahead and invested in a good shoes. I have what they call the La Sportiva brand. It's quite common and known. The shoes really helps you grip because you are running in really slippery places. You don't want your ankles to twist, and your shoes needs to be quite agile, but also very grippy. Quite expensive, but it's really good for you to invest in good shoes. And there's a whole lot of knowledge about the kind of shoes you need depending on your feet, how much distance you want from the toe to the shoes, how tight it needs to be, how you wear what kind of socks you need to wear. And you have those socks that looks like gloves where, that fits into each of the toe.
Yeah, I like those socks.
The Jinji socks.
The Jinji,
I invested in really good socks and shoes. That's the first thing. The second thing as an ultra distance runner is the bag. I didn't even know the bag was called the vest or the skin.
Okay.
It's the hydration pack. It's quite important because you're running long distances, and one of the things that you do is you're always fueling yourself. That's one. And also that you may have to remove things or wear things because you're running in the mountains. It can rain or there could be harsh sun. So the vest and the hydration pack is quite important. I would highly recommend that. You need to be used to it as well. A rookie mistake I did was this. I had a bad basic, hydration vest before the 100K, and I had ordered this really cool Salomon hydration pack, and I didn't have a lot of time to practice. So in my 100K, I was sort of getting used to it. I sort of knew how to navigate, but I wished I had more time with the fluency or the easiness of using my hydration pack. So that's the second most important thing that you need to have. The vest is important. And after the vest is the clothing itself, which is the jacket. It matters. The longer the distance you run, really matters the lighter your apparels are. Okay. You have this super light jacket. And if it's really cold, you have lightweighted fleece that is designed by companies to keep you warm, but it's not too heavy on you. And the most popular thing, especially when you're running in colder places, is the buff. I didn't know what they were.
What's a buff?
Buff is like it's like a band that you wear it as your, headscarf, but you can also put it as your scarf. Like it's just like a band of clothing, but you can put it in any shape or form. You could just cover your head with it and becomes like a cap.
Or cover your neck. I see what you mean.
Or you could just wrap it around your hand if it's just, troubling you.
Yeah.
That's a really popular item of clothing amongst runners, buff. So it's the clothing. And then there are, of course, a few more. It's your watch. I didn't realize how important watch was. I was like, I can run without watch. But the more you get into it, the more you get into data. Like, sometimes I want to know where I am, and those things are present in your map. I want to know what my heart rate is. I want to know what my pace is, because especially when you're running a race, you want to watch out for your speed, your distance. And there's a whole lot of metrics you sort of get into.
Okay, so a smartwatch, not a normal watch.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for saying that, because, when I say watch now, I'm just saying smartwatch,
okay.
And especially when you trail run and you're doing it in the night, really good head torch. Now, again, for trail running, you have those light-weighted head torches. I was very fortunate that some of my friends lent me those good quality head torches because I was running for the first time. They saw my torch. They said, this is a crappy one. And they were very, really generous to give me a good torch. And also you need to have like a backup torch because the last thing you want to do is your torch is off and you're deep in the jungle and you're fumbling around to find where your batteries are and replacing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are some of the key things that you need to have as an ultra runner.
Wow, because you're right. If you're running 100 kilometers, you're going to be running through the night.
Yeah.
So the torch, I wouldn't even have thought of that. So anyone who's listening now who's thinking about doing an ultra run, know that they need to bring a torch, but two.
If they're running in the night.
Yeah, if they're running in the night, 100
over
kilometers. Yeah, they go over time. So obviously we have all of the equipment and the water, I'm assuming, is in the vest. What about the food?
Food is really important, especially for trail runners and long distance runners. Race day, they have to check our mandatory gear. They say, make sure you have some energy bars and that is it, because we would be provided with all the necessary food at the checkpoints. When you're not racing and when you're doing a lot of training on your own, there are three things that are really important. One is to fuel yourself up. You need the fuels for your muscle. You need to down on a lot of carbs. You need to eat something fat, but also not too much. But just make sure you have more of like rice and starch or oats. So a fat or carbohydrates are really important. You also need to take some proteins because proteins sort of repair your muscles during the runs. And I eat a lot of nuts, or I take those bars that are, protein heavy as well. Two other things that are really important is your salt and sugar, because you lose a lot of salts from your body. Mm-hmm. What I love about running is that you're incentivized to eat chocolates. Oh. I love it. You're given Coke, you're giving all high sugary contents because you're losing so much salt and sugar. And sometimes I take these salt tablets as well. Mm-hmm. So salt and sugar, but sometimes what I do is I try to cook some natural food. So I just bake some potatoes and I put a lot of salt in it and I make them into patties and I just sort of eat them. And yeah, so it's an alchemy in a way, but you need to make sure you're fueling yourself and you also have to take into consideration your stomach. Some people have really sensitive stomachs, so you can go all processed food, like you even have those energy bars and gels and all of those things, and they are so small, lightweighted, and that is fine. Or if your stomach is not allowing for that, then you'll have to prepare your own food.
Right.
I didn't know what to expect. I think my stomach was fine. Like I could eat anything, but I still carried a few natural things with me.
Things, yeah. So you've got your food, you've got your water all ready to go. I'm assuming there's checkpoints along the run. So let me know what is at a checkpoint and what do they do at a checkpoint? And what does one expect at a checkpoint?
Checkpoint is there for a few reasons. One is that they're tracking runners as well. They want to make sure, hey, you finished the 10-kilometer. Congratulations, I'm going to make an entry. But also they have a few, tents with everything that we need to refill. Like we've run out of water because in 10 kilometers you drink water. And you don't want to run with a lot of heavy stuff. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's fine. You run with 2 kilometers water if there's a checkpoint every 10 kilometers. Mm-hmm. So you gauge all of that beforehand. And checkpoints also have, some of the checkpoints just have, food, water, electrolytes that you need. A few other checkpoints, like say after 50, they allowed for your support crew to come and see you. Okay. Now, support crew could be anybody that would, morally say, yes, great going, or don't quit because after 50 you're knackered. You may have some, friends and family to just come and cheer you. So there are very few checkpoints where they would allow for families to just come and quickly cheer you and go back. And there are also other checkpoints that would have emergency stations or aid stations where you would have paramedics just in case something happens, looking out for you. So that's the concept of a checkpoint. They're sort of organized in a way based on how tired the runners are,
yeah.
or, when the hot food is needed. Like, for example, just before the last 30 kilometer, we had a checkpoint. It had fire, it had music, but it's really bad because, it would want to make you stay. And if you stayed, then, and if you sit and stay, there's no way, it would just delay you from the race.
Yeah.
And I learned about all of this. Like, I'm so glad that I took the 100-kilometer ticket. Like, you actually learn about these experiences. You got to live it to really understand what it is. No amount of reading gives you these experiences.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's great. I mean, you can read it all, but there's so much to read. There's so much emotions that goes into it. So checkpoints overall is a way for people to check, but also make sure you refill and things are taken care of.
Okay. So I know that you changed your ticket from original 22 kilometers to 100 kilometers. Was there a different course trail that you had to run?
No, the 22 kilometers was not the same trail, really, because the event organizers have to, gauge the kind of crowds and make sure the trail doesn't get overcrowded. Some of the trails are quite narrow. In fact, it is just one single fleet of stairs all the way down Ferber, the giant stairways. So 22 was slightly different than 100. Like, I think 11 and 22 were the same. 50 was a bit similar to 100. But that didn't mean that I was unaware of these trails. Again, to the point I'd made before was that I was very familiar with all of these trails. I knew it was just another hiking track that I had already been to. And I just needed to know where to go and, where to start. And to be honest, they were all so well marked. Like, there would be no way I would just completely miss out a checkpoint and go somewhere else. Although I believe that happened just to one or two people out of the whole 2,000 people that ran. But it's a very rare occurrence.
So obviously not all of the runners take off at once. How does that work?
So based on how many people have signed for a race, like for 100 kilometers, let's say 500 people signed for it, 50 kilometers, maybe 1,000 people signed for it, 22 kilometers, maybe more signed for it. So they take the number of people that have signed for the race and they divide them into what you call the start groups.
Okay.
Which means, the first group, usually the fastest runners, they get to say, for example, start at 6 a.m. And then the second group starts just like 15 minutes after them. The third group starts, 15 minutes after them. And that's pretty much it. You are put into a start group, which starts slightly later, but it also makes sure, everybody has that breathing space.
Can you take us through what you experienced on race day?
Look, on my race day, I started at 8 a.m. It was, Saturday morning, and I finished next day at 5 a.m. I was out there for 20 hours straight. And I don't know, like there's no words that would aptly describe the experience of my first ever ultra race. Like, it's even like magical that I finished it, because I went there thinking, I just want to know the experience of an ultra runner. And I knew I could do 30, like, confidently. And I also knew that I could do 50 with a little bit of pain and a lot of suffering. But 100, I didn't know what to expect. The first 20K went smooth also because I had a really good friend who was pacing me and said, Shru, let's run this. Let's run all the flats. Let's run the down and then just hike the steep places. And I said, okay. And I was used to covering the distance as well. The next 40K took a sudden slump. I felt it was quite unmotivating, but I had to just, keep myself going. But I also didn't want to make my friend feel unmotivated, like I was angry, but I had to put that smile on. But what fascinated me was everybody was smiling. I knew everybody was going through their own pain. And I saw such diversity, and that sort of really kept me going. Like, the community is quite friendly as well. The track was also quite dry and boring for 40 kilometers. I do want to let the audience know that I ran the October 22K and the track was very different from all the other ultra marathons. One of the other reasons that motivated me as well, because usually the track is a lot more tougher, they say. Not that this was not tougher. They just, put a really boring fire trail along the 40K, which would go all the way to McMahon's Point on Anderson's Trail and come back. But overall, somehow I finished the 40K, and then I finished till the 60K, 70K, and I just kept going. And the last 20K was when the real game began. Because I thought, oh, look, they've sort of made it easier than the other trails. But guess what they did? They put all the steep elevations, whatever elevations they're taken out, they put it all back in the last 20 kilometers.
Oh, okay.
And the last 20 kilometers was when I had to start deep in the jungle.
Yeah.
That was the last checkpoint at QVH, which they call the Queen Victoria Hospital. It's just an old ruined, broken building. They say it's quite
haunted.
Haunted as well, but it was not at that point. I don't know. I truly think I was haunted because there was some energy in me that made me feel liberated. There was so much pain, and I don't know what happened. There's something that ignited me, and I felt great. I felt like I want to do this. Throughout, I said, I'm going to go to QVH, call Nikki, my husband, and I would just be out. Mm-hmm. But when I reached there, something in me changed. And I said, look, I've done all this. 20K, I'll be getting a 100K finisher medal, and I'll become an ultra runner.
Yeah.
So why not do it? And I was just so happy about it for some reason. But however, it was very dark, and my cramps in my hip had somehow become a bit unbearable, but I, numbed the pain, bit the bullet, and I said, just focus and go. And I was gobsmacked that I even ran during that point, because that was my favorite trail. It's the Wentworth Falls.
Yes, I know that one that you're talking about.
You go through the Lincoln Rock, you go down, it's the Wentworth Falls. And this is something that I had run with the group so many times. And you know what changed? Is because I would run with my, local running group. We would, it would just be such a jolly run in the morning. And I had this sort of positive mental energy and memory running those trails. So I said, this is my turf. I'm going to do this.
Fantastic.
And I just ran it. And I feel at that point, something had taken over me. Maybe it was, I was in a flow state. Maybe it was just pure grit in action, or my mind had taken over matter. I know it was painful, but if I have to, look back, the last 20 kilometers was the best part of my run.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Because you knew you were so close. Can I just ask, was your friend still with you at this point? Or because when did that friend stop, or did they just do the 50, or how did that work?
Yeah, look, as in she tried to keep it with me as much as possible. So that's another thing, right? When super experienced ultra runners say, I'm going to hike it, don't believe them. As a runner, you will have this sudden urge to not hike and run. The same thing happened to me. But however, and I knew I was holding her back. So I said, why don't you just go? Like, I don't want to hold you back. But she's tried to stay. I said, and I had to lie to her and say, you know what? Maybe in the next point, I'm going to drop out. Because there was a part of me that really wanted to drop out.
Yeah.
So that somehow made her feel bad, because she said, give it a shot. But if I didn't lie at that point, I knew she would just, hold herself back. I said, you got to go, you got to do this. And she was legendary. After she went, it felt like she unleashed herself as well. And she did something called the negative split, which just means that the last 20 bit was crazy in elevation. But negative split is when you go faster than your first part.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So you're splitting negatively. And that is fascinating for a lot of runners. It just means that you're tired and you're doing negative splits, and especially you're tired and you have that last 20 kilometers was pure stairs. You have the Furber stairs that you had to climb. And it was just pure climbing and climbing. She did that, and that was fascinating. And in a way, I was to myself as well. And I really enjoyed doing this myself, because never until then I had been alone in a forest in the dark.
Wow.
It's my first ever time.
Obviously, during the race, it was spent running during the nighttime or when it was dark. How do you run in the dark? I know you said you had lamps, a headlamp on, and you're running on a trail. I would be afraid that you trip, because you're not looking at your feet. Or did you look at your feet, or did you just trust in the process of running?
Actually, running in the dark is a lot more easier than I thought for two reasons. One is your focus at that point is just on where the light is, right? You don't have to look around because when you're running, all you need to do is look what is ahead of you, make sure your feet lands in a place that doesn't trip you off. It's pretty much it. That's it. And the second reason it's easy is because you're not distracted by the gorgeous, waterfalls and trails.
Yeah.
In a way, people say, wow, you trail run, you check out the best trails and all of that. Nature is with you, but you're not like putting your head up and saying, la la la, hey, look at that. No, you don't do that when you trail run. You're so focused. So it helps you focus a lot more better in the dark.
Oh, wow.
And the light was powerful. Light head torch is one of the most important equipment to carry.
Yeah.
And I had a good one. I mean, my friends lent me a better one, and it was great. So running in the dark was a lot more easier.
Yeah. Okay. Now, sorry, this is a bit of a personal question, but I want to ask because I'm sure people are going to wonder if you have to go to the bathroom. Do you wait till a checkpoint, or do you just go in the bush?
Look, I mean, there are a lot of dummies. In the race day, they put mobile toilets. But look, you don't know. If you have to go, you have to go. And as a trail runner, you should just be comfortable with it. Like, why do you true trail if you're not comfortable with going on the outside? But of course, you have to be mindful where you go. You don't want to do number 2 on the road when people step on it. Like, I haven't done that yet. But of course, just going for a wee is fine, just in the bush. And I think that's what I like about running. Like, you get out of your comfort zone, and these things are like natural as long as you're not stinking the place up. Race day is fine because you have those toilets to use, but if you're just doing regular trail running, you either go first, but at some point you want to pee in the bush. The best thing is there's nobody that will see you, and even if someone sees you, they understand.
Yeah, okay,
they go do it. So you're in the same zone, so you probably give the look and saying, hey, I'm deviating, and everybody knows why you're deviating because it's a natural thing.
So you finished this race. So what are your takeaways after the completion of the race?
First of all, having a positive mindset is really important. I think I like the fact that I didn't know what I was expecting, because honestly, if people know what kind of, pain they go through, a lot of times they probably wouldn't do it. Or, I mean, sometimes there's joy, beyond the pain, and that's ecstatic to experience as well. Like, I can't put it in words. The takeaway is positive mindset, and there's always going to be an unknown, which is okay, which leads to my second point. Even though I didn't prepare a lot. I mean, I prepared in a very different way. Like, I was confident about the trail. I knew everything. I had access to some amazing friends and, heaps of knowledge. I had local knowledge. Every time I would go out for a run, they would tell me, hey, Shru, you need to take this nutrition, and would talk about their running stories. By the way, trail runners are great talkers. Like, you talk a lot, and sometimes they're cheeky. The best trail runners test you. They're holding a great conversation when they're climbing the stairs, and then you're like, you're panting, and then they hold conversations. So throughout, I have access to some amazing runners, and they keep sharing something. So I had access to knowledge. So my takeaway is either you really prepare well, like understand in a theoretical way, or experience it in a practical way by, having access to these groups or living in a place or just doing it, or even volunteering in an ultra trail event, which I want to do at some point because it's a great way to give to the community. So yes, a positive mindset, really, really preparing well, and just discipline. Because once you prepare well with the knowledge about trail running itself, but none of them is achievable if you don't have that discipline. I regularly went to my coaching sessions for the last 1.5 years before the race. Yes, I hadn't done 100K, but I never missed the running that was happening.
Yeah.
You know, there was that continuous practice. I took myself out to groups. I went for the strengthening sessions. I kept doing trail runs. So it's just the discipline. So yeah, just 3 things: knowledge, discipline, and positive mindset.
So what does the future hold for you as far as running goes?
Okay. Look, as in, this is addictive, running. And what I love about running is this. I have access to my solitude if I need. I love spending time with myself, and you got to be comfortable with that. But equally, trail running gives me access to a wonderful, humble, supportive community. And running improves your mental and physical health. It has a plethora of advantages that way. It helps you reduce anxiety, and it has for me. You know, sometimes I would be so stressed with work, and I would just go out for a run, and I would come back and I would feel so positive. So there's so many benefits with it. But what I like the most is, you know, I always feel like not competing with others. Running, weirdly, you know, you want to compete with yourself. I want to be better than yesterday. I want to be better than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And I want to know like what is out there. Never had I thought about race, but I now did a race. I have a shiny medal. I'm like, hey, I want more medals. Let me see where else the race is happening.
Yeah.
So I want to do a few more races, but this time I don't want it to be, you know, a surprise. I want to be a sustainable runner. Mistakes done. I mean, it's fine. It's great that I ran 100K. Nothing happened to me, and it's a big miracle, but who knows if something happens. So I want to strengthen myself a lot more. And I want to make this a little less suffering than what my first 100K was. And that's my goal. Yeah. Make 100K a lot more digestible, which I'm not sure will. I don't think my running group will agree, because running's never going to be easy. Yeah. But it is going to be a lot more endurable. And who knows, someday I'll do my Ironman as well.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's fantastic. Now, I know you've written a blog, and I'll put that information in the show notes, and people can read the blog about your experience. I'm assuming it's about your whole experience.
That's correct. It's just my experience about what it is to be a first-time ultra runner, but it also has a lot of details about ultra running, and it talks about, you know, some of the food and techniques, my recovery and my experience. So if you want to read about it, you can.
Yeah. And one thing before we go, I did want you to share that after the run, you found out something really interesting about you being one of the only.
Yes. So what surprised me is this. You know, I happened to become the first woman of Indian nationality to have run the 100-kilometer ultra trail. It's also a part of what they call the UTMB series, which is called Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. I even went and checked the other UTMB series, and there is no woman of Indian nationality in the database. And you know, you were saying what motivates me, what's my next thing. I've started a campaign called Ultra Needs Love and Color. I found out not a lot of colored people on the trail. So that's another thing that's motivated me. I'm like,
I love that.
What is that quote, right? You want to be the change you want the world to see, right?
Yeah. And I love that. Can I just give you a bit of an applause?
Oh my God. This is... I didn't know you had the feature. That's cool.
No, I think that deserves a really big round of applause. That's absolutely amazing. So that probably, and to find that out after the race, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not like I was planning to say, hey, what is that sport that needs diversity? I just fumbled into it, and I realized I became the first Indian woman. And this has become another motivational element to keep me from, you know, going and not giving up. And I want more people of color to participate. Yeah. So probably they didn't know about it. You know, they say, okay, you don't have diversity, then sure, go participate. Yeah. And to be honest, it requires one thing it does require is a partner that's very supportive. I'm really happy that Nikki has been so supportive. The last 2.5 years, I would go running and I would be knackered. I wouldn't have energy to do anything like gardening work or cooking or cleaning. It's you do need a supportive partner, but also if you don't have that, honestly, it's fine. It's just about having a proper discipline.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. And go out there, participate. And I thought I could never run in my life.
Yeah.
And running has so many benefits. So if I can do it, any of you listening can.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. And I think that's a perfect way to end this podcast. It's been such a pleasure to have you on the show today. And I think those listeners out there that might be inspired to go out and try out an ultra trail run. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Evelyn. That was great.
Thank you so much for your company. Please tune in next week to Life's Rich Tapestry, where you will hear another courageous conversation spoken from the heart.